My name is Rachel, Beth Egenhoefer from the States. I don't exactly know why I'm here. I don't do typical things with software. My background is in textiles.
You're supposed to do strange things with software, not
yes, I do strange things with software. That's why Amy dragged me here. But my background is in textiles, and I work a lot with the conceptual similarities between textiles and computing languages. And I come to this with a playful curiosity about trying to seek understanding about intangible things. So I don't necessarily come to this scientific or computer science background, but purely as like an artistic background. And I also just want to throw out there that I don't exactly know what I'm talking about. One of the things, most everything I'm going to present today is all works and ideas that are in progress. So I really encourage like discussion, or if you have thoughts or feedback, because it's all very much in progress and not complete. Okay, so the thing that I'm interested in is how you can represent intangible information in tangible methods, such as knitting. And I became interested in board games, and particularly non-strategy children's board games, such as Chutes and Ladders or Candyland. Games that require no strategy, that they're all based on either luck or chance, and how those relate to computing. So if you take a game like Chutes and Ladders and you say, move forward 4, if ladder go up, if chute go down, else stay. How that is similar to computing languages, and so how then also looking at knitting patterns and how knitting instructions, knit 1, purl 2, that kind of thing, how that is also similar to computer programs. So if knitting patterns share this relationship with software and board games share this relationship with software, what is the relationship between board games and knitting? And do they meet somewhere where there's, in this kind of algorithmic space? So I'm kind of interested in, if a computer, a knitting machine, and a board game all sat down to dinner, what would the conversation consist of? And I can just run through. So I became interested in how you represent the algorithmic movement of a board game in knitting patterns. So I became interested in how, trying to capture movement of the board game. So I started off with a list of, I don't know if it might be too long for you to read, but just kind of a list of 20 questions and ideas that I'll just kind of read off to kind of get you to know where my thinking is. How are the algorithmic patterns of board games like computer codes? How are algorithmic instructions of these games related to computer programming? Is there a connection between playing such games as a child and the way you choose to order your thoughts /lives /actions later in life? What is the desire to win these games? What is the desire to consume candy, to consume such intangible information that lies within computers? What is the connection between knitting, computer programming, board games, and candy? They're all desirable yet highly mathematical, algorithmic, and structured. How can these soft, shiny, entertaining, and sweet symptoms also be encrypted, intangible, programmed, tension-creating objects? Ideas of predetermined games, the dice versus the deck of cards. What really is the purpose of playing Candyland if it is determined, the winner's determined before the game starts, essentially? So what's the purpose of playing that anyways? Why is landing on a pink square all that exciting? What is the nonlinearity potential in board games? What if Chutes and Ladders had no numbers on it? Candyland, the game all about not having, it's a game about candy, yet you're not consuming any candy while playing the actual game. What role does candy play in these games in relation to desire and board game child in movement? What satisfaction do you get out of seeing your opponent go down a chute or up a ladder? Or what satisfaction do you yourself get? Being aware of your space, your body, surroundings, and opponents, so knowing that you have to move 5 spaces ahead, you have 22 spaces until you get to the end. You don't want to roll a 2 because then you'll have to go down a chute, that kind of thing. Are these games fascist in any way?
Yeah, excuse me. Some of us are not English speakers as first language. Can you just speak a little slower?
Yes.
Because there is no way I can follow you.
Yes. Sorry. Okay. Are these games fascist in any way? Kind of meaning, who's telling you to be excited to be landing on a pink square, or who's telling you that you want to go up chutes or down ladders or to win, essentially. Would these games be more interesting if you could do more within them. For example, instead of just passing through the peanut brittle house in Candyland, you could actually eat the peanut brittle, and what is the threshold of fantasy in these games, and is that important? So these were kind of some of the ideas that I was thinking about in relation to board games and algorithms and knitting. And I started to try and make charts of how I saw them relating and not relating to one another. There's problems with these charts, I know. But I was just trying to come to some sort of order of how these things can relate to one another. And I also had this idea of what if there was no end to the game, and what if these games didn't have numbers? There would be this non-linear game. And then somewhere in all of this, my fabulous friend Brad, who will be speaking in 15 minutes and 3 seconds, I forced him to play Sheets and Ladders with me, and that inspired him to make some software. And I won't show it because he's going to show it, but essentially it prints out an image of the movement of the game, not the movement, but the spaces that you land on in the game. He can talk more about that, but this kind of came close to what I wanted to do, but for me it was really more just a record of which spaces were landed on in a game, and not so much the movement that occurred in the game. And it was really the movement that I was interested in. So then I kind of began to question if I was really interested in board games at all, or if it was more the bodily function or the movement that exists between the user and the machine that I found more interesting, and board games are just one example of this. So then I started to think about how we use our bodies to negotiate with machines, and how machines negotiate with us. And I'll just quickly show this. I had done this project, and I'll explain to you how it works before I show you. So basically this is a strip of candy dots, which I think is a lot like punch cards. And essentially it's a narrative. It's a narrative that's written, and if you click on the dots in the the linear order, you'll get the narrative as it is as it was composed, as it was meant to be read. But so say if you're on this dot, you also have the choice within the narrative to move to dots that are connected to it. So this is all divided up into it's divided up into themes that I've kind of been working with or trying to work through. So how we negotiate with machines, thresholds, and organizing desires, and then linking them to external objects, internal objects, and spaces that are maybe in between internal and external objects. So I guess I'll just read this, or actually it's not all there, so I can't read it. All right. So negotiating the body in relation to the body, sliding on the threshold, teeter-tottering between decision in attempt to order our desires. Order is that of pure relationship, how we choose to plot candy dots, lining up our thoughts, actions, selves, and desires in relation to one another. The sum being greater than the part, split between spirit and matter, functioning both in the spatial and temporal. The candy calls into question the ways in which we both internally and externally order our desires, establishing rules of order, play, and desire, decorating our negotiations, how to rearrange your body to balance order, switching sides, flipping choices, rewarded by negotiating, by realming experiments of history in a grid, fragile. When does a zero become a one become a zero? And if they are all the same, how do we make sense of a sea of numbers? Traveling through the space between the clouds leaves a residue, circling through indecisiveness. Materials with history are comfortable when adjustable. So connecting dots between bodies within bodies, which is which. Thresholds make language familiar. I was wearing ski hats when I had ear infections. If maybe more option, perhaps ordering would be negotiating desires instead of being pulled in the machine, bouncing back and forth. So you can kind of enter in, and there's different spaces within the box that you can find. Some is the text, the image. So essentially you get the entire text that I just read, but depending on how you move through it, it comes in a different order. So essentially all of the things that are on here are all about ways in which we use our bodies to negotiate machines. And so this also kind of comes out of personal experience with machines. And so get to it. I have an image I'm trying to find in here. Yeah, so then I started to sweat for my computers. And I don't have any pictures of them yet, but I've also started to expand the sweaters so that you fit into the sweater. The sweater like joins arms and becomes one. And your computer can be connected through this. Let's do. I don't know if you have any questions.
Going back, have you ever read or heard of Hermann Hesse, the Hesse's novel about people?
No.
Okay, but it's a story about a society where people got this kind of multimedia chess game, kind of map anything into anything, and so like start off maybe snakes and ladders, and then move it these walls, and then a theory to it. I don't know when it was written actually. Because it was an interesting cross-media years ago, and somebody told me about it. I mean, it's just a novel. I mean,
Yeah.
But it involves this kind of strange multimedia game, which is something we're
Yeah.
so it might be checking that.
Yeah.
It's called it's originally in German, Glass Berlin Street. Translating it.
Somebody has written to emulate that structure of self-modifying games or games that have good structures and arguments. So there's I think it's like boss games and something
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I want to stay away from is just kind of direct data visualization. Like I have a knitting machine, and one of the things I've been trying to do, and what helping me do, is try and come up with how do you interpret this into something that could be knit and then knit machine. But I just wasn't satisfied with kind of the direct like data visualization. Like, well, here's some data. So that's kind of what kind of began to like reflect that and just, I mean, it's a how do you represent movement in form? And I guess I'm stuck right now, but.
What does it matter? Make these transformations and make these mappings. Does it have things beyond the game that it is?
Right. No, that's kind of part of where my question is, and I said, well, am I even really interested in board games at all? Interested more, our relationship with machine and space of negotiation that happens in these.
That's basically.
Yeah.
Well, some.
I didn't know what I'm doing, but yeah.
All three things painting can be
At the same time, all doing
Close. I can show you. I've done one experiment, I think I have it on my site. Yeah. So this was, I essentially played Chutes and Ladders, or Snakes and Ladders, you guys call it, with 4 people, and they're represented with colored lollipops. And so and as his face stuck to the ground with chewing gum, and then the movement was connected with a string. So instead of just kind of marking where the space was that they landed on, the string was also in the path. So I mean, if you went up a ladder and then you went down a chute, you know, you were kind of going all over the place like that. So so this was one experiment I did, and I afterwards had thought that I should have actually chewed the gum and taken the wrappers off, the lollipops. But this was one attempt that I had. Otherwise, combining the 3, I mean, I've done a lot with like just knitting and weaving and kind of textile things, and I've done other things with candy and but to bring all 3 of them together is kind of where I'm at right now. Okay. Well, Brad, I'll give you my 4 minutes.